Welcome back to B&C Book Club.
Back if you're supposed to do the new segment. Fuck, you messed it up. You messed it up. You're supposed to say welcome if you're new, and I'm supposed to say welcome back if you're not. Uh, or if
You
you're
know,
new, welcome to B&C Book Club.
listen, I think we just keep this.
Okay. Well, anyway, welcome back, guys. If you're not new to the BNC Book Club, today we'll be doing the second book of the Psycho Shifter series. It's called Psycho Fae. This book is by Jasmin. Peep the pretty cover.
It's pretty.
It's. I think it's nicer than the first one, actually.
I do too.
Upon reevaluation, I like the pink blade and the nice subtle colors in this one.
And the flowers for Jax.
Little snake. I heard you had a question for me.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever wanted to be a fairy?
No. No. Like a little gay fairy or like a a real fairy?
Like fae, like an actual fae. Like
Maybe once when I was younger. But
was
I
it
think werewolves are cooler.
was it inspired by like the Winx Club fairies?
I actually didn't watch Winx Club, believe it or not.
Oh, goodness.
I saw little clips, but I was not a Winx Club girl.
I was not either. I was a Tinkerbell girly.
I respect Tinkerbell. I like the designs in that one too.
Well, I guess you got any little add-ins?
Little add-ins.
You got any ad-libs?
Yeah, I do. So for everybody who watched the first episode, I hope you're feeling just as ill as we are about this series. For those who are new, definitely go back and watch that first episode, or else you're going to be very lost. But honestly, you probably don't even need the context. We'll catch you up on the second book. This one is also just as much of a thrill as the last one. Arguably a little worse than the last one, but I hope you enjoy the video all the same.
Oh goodness, I can't wait for this journey.
I'm so excited. So this right here is the little blurb at the back of the book. I don't own a physical copy, but here's a general synopsis of this book.
I definitely took this from Amazon, so
good job. I'm glad you
I
did
sourced it.
Safe way. Good job. But the back of the summary of the book, are you ready to enter into a new realm? Fight for survival in the deadliest gladiator Fey games. I shifted into my saber-toothed tiger, but that was just the beginning. Jax, Cobra, and Asher are now my teammates. Once again, we're fighting for our lives and our futures. But nothing is as it seems, and for every secret we uncover, another unfolds.
Is that
Under the spiteful watch of Xerxes and the evil Fey Queen, it's not clear we're going to survive. Can we work together, or will we implode? One thing is for sure, I'm about to uncover my destiny. Power is in my veins.
so?
Actually, that's kind of baller.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah. I think this is the most most concise anything about this book.
Yeah, I especially like the last like 3 lines. One thing
Yeah.
for sure, I'm about to uncover my destiny, and power is in my veins would sound so much cooler if it wasn't out of Sadie's mouth.
Yeah, 100%. Isn't the sentence, but nothing is as it seems, and for every secret we uncover, another unfolds? Isn't that like saying the same thing twice?
Basically, yeah, but Jasmine has a tendency to like reiterate the same stuff within the same paragraph multiple times in the same chapter. So this feels right at home.
Yeah.
Nothing new here.
I wish we got more power is in my veins vibe from Zadie throughout this.
No, that would have been definitely cool, but
Oh,
we gotta show the readers.
this is true. So, for some reason, this book has an introduction written into the beginning, and I didn't take a screenshot, but I typed it out for you in a font that I felt like added to it. These are Jasmine Mass's words for an introduction to this book. There's also a trigger warning in the beginning of this book for stuff that should have been trigger warning in the first book, but I digress.
It was in fact. We did in fact lie in that book. There were trigger warnings. I skipped them because
They didn't show up in mine. Like, in my Kindle Unlimited version, there were no trigger warnings.
they were in my PDF. They were like the 3rd page. It's the same trigger warnings as this book. Like the trigger warnings didn't change, but they were there for me at least. I just skipped them because I tend to skip them and just take stuff as they come.
We will warn when we are closer to it, but there is a scene later on that we have to talk about that
Hmm.
is a rape scene. So if you're not comfortable with that, I will timestamp it so that you can skip past it, so you can continue watching without having that bug you. But this is the intro that was in the beginning of the book that hurt our brains. All myths are rooted in some truth. This series is about different planets connected by black holes, aka realms, attached by portals with inhabitants you've heard of in myths and dismissed as fairy tales. There are politics, deceptions, and secrets on the macro scale, and they vary from realm to realm. In the human realm, the inhabitants learn they live in an antarchical system and there is no supreme authority over Earth. They're wrong. The High Court secretly reigns sovereign over all the worlds. Realm wide peace is their motto. Monsters enforce this peace, a next to impossible task because wealth corrupts, but power destroys. And among the hundreds of planets with sentient life, a few special individuals possess power on the nuclear level, more energy in their cells than an atomic bomb. The truth, most individuals go their entire lives without knowing or caring about the other realms or creatures within them. They live in bliss. In this series, ignorance isn't an option for our main characters. Through birthright or circumstances, they're players in the macro level game. Now, all they must do is survive.
And can we go ahead and pan back to the
Yeah.
first picture real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, the line, there are politics, deceptions, and secrets on the macro scale. Um, I will put a disclaimer, there's no politics in this book. I don't know where she got that from. There's not a single political figure in this book besides the Fae Queen, and I don't even think she knows what politics is. She's just all about violence. And then the deceptions and secrets on the macro scale, I, it's just the author choosing not to share anything until the very end. I promise you, there's no like aha moment. I went into this book with no assumptions because that only leads to disappointment with her. And I came out of this book still disappointed anyway, but I expected everything that happened, basically.
I just.
So
Also, why did we need the information that there are, hundreds of planets?
I don't know because we only care about two,
Maybe
really.
three, honestly. We've got the Shifter Realm, where they were at in the beginning. We've got the Fey Realm and the Beast Realm, and those are like the only places we hear about.
Hmm. I think it's
So,
funny that she includes humans too
yeah.
because we don't meet humans in this book. Spoiler alert: we don't meet them in the whole series. But also just tossing in that they live in an anarchical, oh my gosh, anarchical system, and that there's no supreme authority over Earth. I'm just like, okay, that's great. And then you say they're wrong, and then you bring up the High Court secretly, but then we don't talk about humans at all. So I felt like this was quite frankly very irrelevant because it doesn't apply to me. I'm not reading the introduction like, oh my god, we have a Supreme High Court
Oh my
overseeing the
god.
Earth.
Who would
No,
have guessed?
like honey, I know where I am. This is not helping me, the reader, feel any more immersed in the series.
Also,
So it
we
falls flat.
we 100% skipped this the first read through and then found it after we read the book
Yep.
based on a review by somebody else. They were like, "Was the intro really necessary?"
Nope. And I must add before you flip off of this picture that the realm-wide peace, that motto, it shows up only only in the introduction and nowhere else in the book. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no peace. It's just a lot of chaos.
you
And
know,
I'm living for it, but it's so funny to include it and then never utilize it ever again in the rest of your book.
we'll pop this back up here. Why are we atomic bombs now? Why is our main character an atomic bomb? Because as far as Sadie goes, that's not what I would think of when I think of person that's like an atomic bomb.
Yeah, and I think it's also funny because I guess the author uses atomic bomb for like human reference of how much energy this person has, but since we're talking on the macro scale, as Jasmin seems to bring up, with planets with powers that are very otherworldly, I think an atomic bomb is very lackluster, if you will. Like
Right.
we're talking about black holes. They have more energy, or absorb more energy than an atomic bomb. We have the sun, quite frankly, that's stronger than an atomic bomb. You could argue that they had more energy than several suns, right? And that would be
Yeah.
more impactful than an atomic bomb. But that's just me nitpicking.
Yeah, we could have had a more fantasy-based description of that. Oh,
That's fine.
shall we move into
We shall.
the prologue?
Oh boy. Okay. All right. I'll do the synopsis for the prologue. So the prologue of Psychofae is from Jax's perspective. Interestingly enough, I do like getting perspectives from characters outside of Sadie every once in a while. And his prologue is basically a backstory of Jax meeting up with his family, I believe, right after Cobra gets enlisted in the Shifter Realm Army. He comes home, he greets his elderly mother. I believe she is a null.
Yes.
She's a null, which leads to some questions considering, alpha, betas, omegas don't create or are the only ones that can create other alpha, betas, and omegas, but we assume that he's adopted. We also learn that Jax has 5 siblings, originally started with 1, and then came home to 4 more or 5 more
It was 4 more.
siblings. 4 more? Okay,
Yeah.
bringing the total to 5. And there's no true explanation for why they get adopted in the home other than some mysterious figure came to the house and told his mom, "Hey, you need to adopt these kids." And she said, "Okay, I guess," and adopted them.
She said, "Bet, Pookie, I got you. I love kids."
We don't. And they all their names start with the letter J because his second youngest sister, Jala or Jess.
Jess, it was Jess,
Jess.
the sister that he already had, chose these names.
Yes. And the other sisters are Jala and Jana and Jinx, and I don't remember the other one.
I don't either. I guess that means she probably doesn't appear all that often.
Yeah, we'll like put her name up on the screen at some point during this.
The editing note, we'll pop it up, great big in between us.
Exactly. And they all have very eccentric hair colors. I don't remember who has what hair color. I know Jinx is the only one who has like regular black hair. I know the twins, Jala and Jana, they have an electric green streak that runs through their hair.
Oh, no. That's Jess?
Jess?
That's what we typed. That's what we noted. Yeah, she has natural electric green streaks in her hair.
Oh, that's very unfortunate for her.
Yeah. I don't think that would be nice.
No. And basically, the prologue is basically serving as a demonstration that Jax is a protector. He takes these girls, he welcomes them into his home. He's, confused, and they all harass him for it. They name call him. Jinx calls him an ignoramus because he's confused on why there's 4 additional girls in his household that are now his adopted sisters, which frankly I think is a little silly of her. She's touted as the most intelligent of all of them to a very uncanny degree. She asks him at one point if he's read Plato before, and then references the allegory of the cave by Plato by saying that he is stuck staring at the shadows of the cave and hasn't gone outside. And she's, what,
6?
6? Yeah. A 6-year-old is asking me if I've read Plato and then is reciting the allegory of the cave to me is a little crazy. A little far-fetched, if you will, even for a fantasy world.
I do say that if a 6-year-old was saying that shit to me, I think that maybe they would be booted out of my mother's house. Because that's not a 6-year-old.
No, and in a black household, no less?
Yeah, return to sender. Why is this white child dropped off on this doorstep? This is weird. This is a trap.
The only white child in the whole cast, and I don't have the line pulled up, but I remember Jax being like mildly concerned at her appearance because she's just uncanny.
He said all the girls were unique looking, but there was something unsettling about her coloring.
And I had joked, I put in a comment on the notes of like, Jax dislikes white women, question mark. And yes, I know Sadie's white, but she has golden skin, so maybe she's not completely white.
Yeah. Maybe he sees it as more of a tan. Still such a wild thing to make this man say. You just be like, she looked unsettling. She had a crazed look in her eye. But no, it was something about her coloring.
I mean, at least Jasmine followed through with reinforcing it by having Jinx just go off the rail and be condescending towards him and
True.
overall make me uncomfortable after I read that. I was like, why is this character here? Can we get a better 6-year-old, like one that doesn't babble as much?
The one that actually babbles instead of spurting Play-Doh at us. The one that
Exactly.
plays with Play-Doh, not reads it.
I like that. I'm stealing that. Thank you.
Oh, I think that's
But
the most clever thing I've said regarding her.
good stuff. Good. We're starting off strong. We're only 60 minutes in. We're starting off strong. But in conclusion, the the prologue just kind of felt like it was there. It didn't really tell me too much more that couldn't have been condensed in maybe 3 separate paragraphs describing the sisters. And then, they're not going to come up in the series, right? Like I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, well are we going to get the sisters? Like are they going to be impactful? They're too young to really be participating in anything. And it's true, like they don't appear for the majority of this book. And so I felt like the prologue just didn't contribute a lot to Jax's character that we didn't already know. In the first book, he already yapped everybody's ear off about his sisters whenever the opportunity arose, whether like Sadie was dealing with like self-esteem issues and he'd be like, well, I would never let my sisters feel that way, or just overall thinking, I love Sadie and I'm glad I do, and the only reason I respect her is because I have other women in my household. It just wasn't doing it for me. I don't think the prologue needed to be included, quite frankly. Or if it did, it would have been like inserted into a different Jax chapter.
Right. I will say that Jax, I think this was just meant to show him as like a protector and like a big brother. Because why did we have to reiterate like the links that he had between them when we've already, been given that
Yeah.
information?
It would have been better if they were slightly older and it wasn't him meeting them for the first time, but it was him like bonding with them on his trips home. Like a
Right.
series of him coming home and interacting with his sisters, I think would have been way more impactful and actually alluded to his protectiveness rather than him coming home to a bunch of strangers and being like, well, I guess I have to enroll them in school. I have no choice, or else they're going to have to fend for themselves out here.
I will say, the only thing that this does is be able to give us a relevant age when he talks about them later in the book, because we know that this is a 6-year flashback from the time that he meets Sadie, meaning this 6-year-old is now 12 later in the series. So
Right, and I'm
it's
pretty sure all the other girls are in their early teens.
Jess will be 20 because she was
Oh, I
14 in the
meant the
beginning.
flashback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jess was the oldest at 14, and the rest of them were younger. I believe 2 of them, I think the twins were 10, one of them was 8, and Jinx was 6.
Fair enough. I'll give her that.
Um, yeah, little wonky and stuff. I think the best part of this prologue was his sister filling him in that she bit a squirrel.
As retaliation for the
Yeah,
squirrel biting her,
yeah,
and we think they contracted rabies together.
yeah. They
They're
100% share
head-canon.
rabies.
I love
It
that.
explains her off-kilter behavior later on.
Absolutely. But I guess now
Oh.
we can transition into chapters 1 through 5, and I will let you do that one since I did the prologue.
Oh boy. So chapters 1 through 5 bounce around between Sadie, Cobra, and Nasher. Basically, the beginning of the actual book is just Sadie being an annoying brat for like 25 pages.
It's a little horrendous.
It's not great. So the first 5 chapters, the Fake Queen makes her debut. Sadie has a lot of things to say about it. A lot. Much to everyone's dismay. Sadie, Cobra, and Jax are reunited under some disheartening circumstances, and they are provided insight into how royally fucked they are right now. Uh, you wanna go on about what happens in the first chapter?
Oh, I was giving you the whole leeway to do
Oh,
everything.
okay.
You
You
want
give
me to
it.
take the key points? Do you want it?
Uh, let's share them. There's a lot of stuff that happens.
Okay, I'll take the reins. So the chapter 1 opens up with Sadie being starfish on a bed. She's unaware of where she is, but she knows that she's naked and she doesn't like it. She mentions several times that her tits are up, nipples exposed, her vagina flapping in the wind.
I forgot about that.
Mentions this several times in this whole chapter. And she is in one of the bedchambers of the Fae Castle that we're learning, and this is when the Fae Queen is introduced. The Fae Queen starts off by antagonizing Sadie. She remarks about her disgusting appearance, her scars in particular, and I'm not going to harp on like all the excruciating details, but in this chapter we learn that the Fae Queen is protected from harm by enchantments. And in this chapter, we don't really learn what enchantments are. We don't know how they're made, how they're applied, what they actually enchant against, any other information. Even about, we can speculate how they might be broken, if that's even possible. And so the Fae Queen and Sadie go back and forth. The Fae Queen calling out Sadie for a number of things, and Sadie being really snarky about it. And I think we have a
We
quote.
do, we do.
That's perfect.
Let
Put that up
me
on
let
screen.
me grab it.
And so Sadie and the Fae Queen are talking. The first thing the Fae Queen ever asks her is, "Does Cobra know how brutalized your skin is? How ugly you are?" And Sadie, in her mind, is like, "Who would ask such a rude question?" And responds back, "What a trashy question. And really? You don't like my scars? I thought they were pretty." And she monologues to herself immediately after this, and I have this quote highlighted because I thought it was a little funny. She says, "Yes, I had just called the evil Fae Queen with insane fire abilities trashy. It was called living without regrets, and it was my new motto." And we learn that the Fae Queen has fire abilities. They're blue flames, and they don't burn like traditional flames, but they inhibit shifters from shifting into their second form. So that's, a really prominent point here. Keep that under wraps for later. The queen remarks how she's super annoying, and Sadie calls her a bitch, and then the queen lights her on fire with the blue flames. And Sadie says it doesn't burn like a flame, but it feels like 1,000 pins in her skin. And this goes back and forth, where the queen will burn her, and then she'll stop and ask Sadie a question, and Sadie gives her a really snarky retort, and then the queen lights her on fire again. And this happens 3 separate times in the span of 2 pages. And at the end, you're just like, "Sadie, shut up. Stop talking. You can't be mad that you're getting lit on fire if you keep yapping your mouth." And afterwards, the queen's like, "You know what? I was just going to get rid of you. But frankly, I have a better idea with you. I'm going to take you and bring you over to Cobra, and I'm going to watch, or I'm going to broadcast to the whole realm you guys having sex. Except Cobra won't do it because you're so ugly, and it'll be absolutely humiliating for you." And that is where we leave off on that chapter.
And then we go into Sadie being dragged down the hallway to Cobra, and
Naked and
yeah,
sad.
naked, sad, and alone. Oh, wait, we did learn before Sadie's dragged down the hall that the 4 elements that the Fae can use are water, earth, air, and fire.
Like the Avatar.
Yeah, like Avatar. How
I could see.
how very Jasmine Mass of Jasmine Mass.
We don't use organic things. We just pilfer from other fantasy.
We're gonna make that a counter of the first time that we notice something that is a reference to something else in pop culture, because there's several of them in this book, and I'd like to have a counter. Make a tally, Chesh.
I got it. We got
Awesome,
one.
awesome. So we go into Sadie being pushed down the hallway to Cobra. The second chapter is from Cobra's point of view, and we get a little bit of information that we were kind of wondering about in book 1. So I'm going to read the quote. I didn't screenshot it to put it up here because it's long. But in Cobra's point of view, he says, "For a second, time stopped. Sadie stood in the doorway, naked. Her gorgeous body stole my breath. She was delicate and stunning. Long white hair hung in a silky sheet down to her butt, and her golden skin sparkled in the sunshine." I don't know where the sunshine is. They're in a building. Then I saw them. Awful marks covering her torso, a brutal patchwork of stark white scars, the type of wounds that only years of repeated abuse could create, the types of wounds that could only mark the prepubescent flesh of an immortal ABO. Scars only happen pre-puberty, is what we find out from that. Which is a wild thing to learn in book 2. I feel like we should have been given information of why Sadie had scars in book 1, whenever Jax found out about them.
Yeah, I think by the end of book one, we should have had a very solid foundation for how the Alpha, Beta, Omega dynamics work in the story, even if they're already an established alternate universe and other fiction. I think it would have been nice for this book, considering it touts itself as having a non-traditional Alpha, Beta, Omega universe. I think it would have been very good for them to have established, core concepts about them when they come of age, like how their powers develop, anything really. But I guess I'm glad we're getting it at some point rather than never.
Yeah, I wish that it would have been given previously, but I guess now is
Mhm.
better than never. And then, during this, Cobra decides to actually be a decent fucking person. And instead of having sex with Sadie and taking her virginity on a live broadcast to the entire Fey realm, he knocks her out. Just full fucking slap, knocks her out, and she gets drug off to the dungeons.
Yes. And then I'll also note some key points that we learn in the second chapter, which is Cobra POV. So I think it was briefly touched on in book one that Cobra had trauma from the Fey realms, specifically against women, but I don't think they mentioned exactly what. You can just kind of insinuate that it might have been sexual in nature. But we do learn in his chapter that for most of his life, he was a sex slave in the Fey realm. He was offered up to other wealthy or prominent Fae figures as a rare sex commodity, specifically due to the fact that he has those gemstones embedded in him. And he was a sex slave under the Fae Queen. So him and her are fairly acquainted with each other. And we're not entirely sure of whether she profited from this financially or if she used this as a way to flaunt some kind of social status or if she even used this for political gain, as the introduction references. And we also learn at the end of the chapter when he knocks Sadie unconscious and refuses to have sex with her on television that his shifter ability is a sworn secret between him and the Fae Queen. And he used this as blackmail to get out of the Fae realm the first time he left, which was 6 years ago. And he uses it again to have the Fae Queen take him and Sadie out of the room and have them go their separate ways, which is the dungeon, unfortunately for him.
he learns
But
learns this the hard way. In fact, he's not getting out free. He's just giving himself to what she wants.
exactly. And then just for my personal note for myself, for this chapter, I definitely, after I finished reading it, I definitely wanted Jasmin to explore his PTSD. I think not, forcing him to relive trauma, but just as a since him and Sadie both struggle with demons, their inner demons inside, I think it would have been a great opportunity, or even in the future chapters, for them to trauma bond, if you will.
Yeah, like maybe unpack your shit together. You both have issues, and I think you'd understand each other a little bit more if you just talked about them.
Exactly.
Oh, we got to talk about Meat Grinder.
Yes, we do. I guess I'll take over since I'm already talking. Yap, yap, yap. But Sadie arrives at the jail at the beginning of chapter three. She meets
Oh
Jax in
my god.
jail. So her and him have reunited in jail together. Jax has been there for quite a bit of time. Him and Sadie cuddle because she finds, solace in Jax. He's like one of the few men that don't berate her and yell at her all the time. So they're sitting and they're chatting, and then eventually Cobra comes down to the dungeons, but he was beaten to a pulp before he got there by the guards because he fought off the guards as he was getting dragged away. So all the three are reunited again, and it's just, the first half of this chapter is mainly just them pondering to themselves, how did we get here? Like, what are we going to do about this? Fuck Asher, because Asher betrayed them in the last book.
Oh, and
He sold them out to the Fey Queen.
Sadie making enemies of the rats in the dungeon.
Yeah, she does in fact comment on how they're not like the rats at Dick's Tavern.
Yeah. No, she tells a rat to go squeak itself. So.
Everybody is offended. Oh, and also on the way down here, let me know, on
Oh
the
yeah,
way
yeah.
down to these dungeons, Sadie is lamenting over the fact that Cobra would have rather knocked her out than have slept with her, which is a crazy thing to think about because you would have been on live television in a realm you don't know surrounded by other people, and your first priority is to complain that the guy finally did something kind to you and decided not to fuck you live on television. But that's, besides the point. And Sadie gets so fed up with this that she asks the guard, she's like, "Well, would you sleep with me?" And the guard dragging her down doesn't say anything. He just looks at her with disgust. And she gets offended and she's like, "Well, this is a hypothetical. Don't make it weird." And it's so out of place. It's so out of place here. Sadie doesn't take anything seriously. This is the start of her never taking anything seriously
This
when she
is
needs to.
this is the beginning of the downfall of Sadie having any character development, honestly.
Exactly. But in terms of actual plot, we do get some in the latter half of this chapter. The trio meet a prisoner named Legolas, and
Tally
this
mark
is
2.
after, yeah, this is after Jax brutally assaults and murders the guard that dragged Sadie down here because he had asked her why she got punched, and the punch was from Cobra, but Sadie had lied and was like, "No, it was that guard over there." So he pulls the guard into their cell and pummels him to death, which is wildly
Out of
not
character.
out of character, not super out of character because he abused or he tortured that guy from the first book, but it's just the brutality of it all. Like
Like,
the sudden rawness of murdering somebody in front of Sadie in this prison when he didn't have to. He could just have let it go or just been pissed. But he chose to do that, and it was just like Sadie's already been through enough, and then you're gonna like kill people like directly in front of her. But I guess she
like,
doesn't care.
she quite literally just watched Cobra kill somebody upstairs, but that was more in character of him, honestly.
Exactly. But after that, all the prisoners, they get super riled up, excited. They ask who Jax is, and Sadie thankfully doesn't actually give them his name, but she does refer to him as the meat grinder. So that is his nickname in prison. They're chanting the meat grinder, and Jax is unimpressed. It was a little
He
funny.
just looks at Sadie and, like, shakes his head.
And then as they're talking amongst themselves about uh what they've been through, one of the prisoners they're with introduces himself as Legolas, and Legolas is actually the treasurer of the High Court. And I want you guys to note that his position is 4444. I want you to keep that in your heads for later. And some key points that Legolas brings up.
Oh my
He
god.
informs
Hold
them
on.
that the Beast Realm.
I just realized that it is 4x4.
Yeah, it is 4x4, but no, but I mean like the numbers
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just 4x4.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit like the first time I read this, I didn't think anything of it, and then I was like, no, there's no reason it's not just 4444. Like there has to be something. And then I looked into it and I was like, oh, this ties in later. Like this was actual
Yeah.
foreshadowing. Good on you, Jasmine.
The one time
Um,
that she does something and it's like a minor side character.
exactly. But Legolas tells the group, he informs them that the Shifter Realm is actually populated with Beast Realm prisoners, and it's basically like Alcatraz, where the Beast Realm had taken their prisoners and shoved them in the Shifter Realm, and it's apparently been going on for centuries. And they're facing an Alpha Beta Omega population crisis, and to supplement their dwindling numbers, they've taken to kidnapping alpha babies from the Beast Realm, which is a crazy thing to do, by the way. I don't know why you wouldn't just do a trade deal for Omegas or something.
Also,
But
how do we
anything
know
other
they're
than
going to be
kidnapping
alphas?
people, I that's also a good point actually. I'm glad you brought that up because they don't know till they're
Yeah.
20. So
Yeah.
how would you
How
know?
would you know? How do you know you're not just kidnapping a null child?
Oh my gosh. That's such a good point. And then Legolas also mentions that the reason he was in prison was he discovered that the Fae Queen had been getting paid by the Shifter Realm to capture or to kidnap the Alpha babies. So she's been trafficking babies from the Beast Realm to the Fae Realm, which is a little crazy.
And then she's
Like
doing
very
the
in
reverse as
character.
well. Like she's the in between. She's taking them from the shifter realm to the beast realm and from the beast realm to the shifter realm, and she's profiting
Yes,
both ways.
which is so silly. How would no one know that? How would no one in any power on the Beast Realm know that she was trafficking kids both ways? Like, I don't get it. But this is a major plot point for her. It's funny in a like, oh well, I guess it works. I've stopped caring. And then we're just gonna like briefly summarize the last two chapters. I believe the last two chapters are the trio getting out of jail and meeting up with Asher and Xerxes again from the first book. And at the end of chapter 3, I think, we find out that the trio plus Asher are going to be participating in the Fae Games, which is touted as a gladiatorial game broadcasted to the entire realm, and it should last over the course of the month. So I'm going to put a point on the tally because this is basically the Hunger Games.
So we have 3 points now.
Yes. And then last little tidbits that we learn are that Fae in this universe are immortal. So what's new? This is another race that's immortal. They don't die. And the Fae ruler is determined not through inheritance by blood or marriage, but instead by violence. So whoever can kill the Fae ruler usurps the throne. And historically, for quite a while, it's been Fire Fae. They are considered the most brutal of all of them. They have the best offensive abilities. And the Fae Queen, as you probably guessed, is also a Fire Fae, and she has been ruling for the last 5 centuries. So that's quite a long time in power. And basically, the chapter 5 ends with the trio getting escorted into a carriage to be transported to the Fae Games, and inside the carriage, they meet up with Xerxes and Asher. So excited!
And they have a little tussle inside the carriage.
That they do, that they do.
Because nobody is allowed to touch Sadie without everybody else punching the other people.
Unfortunately.
So the next bit is chapter 6 through 10. These are all Sadie's POV, which means that we're going to deal with a lot of monologuing. But basically, these chapters are the Alphas and Circes being transported to the castle, from the castle to the Fae Games for the opening ceremony. At the ceremony, the group gets a first look at their Fae audience and realize that their presence is very unwelcome, and Sadie is really hated, and everybody hates that there is a woman in the games.
They hate feminism.
They hate
She
women.
actually brings this up later.
We meet the 3 half warriors that the Fae Queen has on payroll, basically, and they tell us about their version of the Hunger Games. Chesh, do you want to introduce the men?
I'm
The
so
warriors?
excited you asked. I'm so excited. I drew these in MS Paint for you guys once again. The half warriors, for reference, are warriors of lore in the Fae realm that are revered for their strength and their willingness to help protect the residents of the Fae realm. And Sadie recognizes them because she used to grow up reading these guys. So for the first half warrior, we have Demeter. And he is described as a man as wide and as tall as Jax, with long, silky black hair past his waist, bright pink eyes, tan skin, and tribal tattoos, which doesn't tell me anything because where are the tribes? What tribe? Can we pick one at least? And he's Sadie's childhood hero. This is her favorite of the trio. The other 2 warriors are Shane and Noah. They're twin warriors with dark skin, blood orange mohawks, and green eyes. Demeter is noted to shift into a dragon, and the twins shift into tigers, but they themselves can shift into anything, which brings up a lot of questions because why? Fae don't shift into anything. Alphas only have 2 forms, so why do they get all of them? We'll never know, though. We'll never know. And then, while we're also at the Fae Games, so this is the opening ceremony. So we're introducing all the teams. So it's the Half Warriors, the Alphas, and 1 Earth Fae team, 1 Water Fae team, and 1 Fire Fae team. But while we're there, we also notice Arabella, who you previously would recognize as Aaron. She makes her debut here, sitting with the Queen, as that's her long-lost daughter. And she's sporting a nice, big diamond collar to restrict her powers, whatever those may be. But the Queen did note originally that she didn't have powers, so I'm not really sure what powers we're talking about. But she put it on Cobra to restrict his powers, so I'm not really sure what she put it on her for. Maybe just to tout her strength or whatever. And at the opening ceremony, it starts with the half warriors having to pick someone that they'll be fighting from any of the teams. And Demeter, unfortunately for Sadie, chooses Sadie as his first fight of the day. And it ends right before they start the fight.
Oh, that is where it ends, isn't it?
Yep, it's a cliffhanger.
We also, in these chapters get a bit of Cobra development through Sadie's POV. He claims that he is Sadie's, so that's big.
Great. That's awesome.
And Xerxes has kept the stiletto that Sadie stabbed into him at the end of book 1 in his bicep for 7 chapters.
He claims it's so that it's a reminder of how alphas are.
I think he just likes having a piece of Sadie in him, honestly, but it's okay.
I can imagine that the dangling of the stiletto is definitely uncomfortable to walk around. Like, it just bobs up and down. I'm surprised it didn't fall out, to be honest.
You know what? So right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move. Oh, this is important. Chapter 7 is where we learn that Xerxes has a British accent. And, honorable mention for reference number, 4? Xerxes' accent reminds Sadie of a British accent that she had heard in a bootleg movie about a red-haired witch who was smarter and prettier than everyone else.
I wonder who that could be.
Yeah. I'm just taking a gander that this is probably Hermione.
I mean, she is gorgeous, so I'll
She
give
is.
her credit.
I
Where
will
credit
take
is
that.
due.
She is a beautiful person and really smart. So it is what it is.
It's funny, actually, because I feel isn't bootleg a term to describe something that's close but not exactly? Like, if you bought a bootleg movie, wouldn't it be not the movie? It would actually be like a ripoff.
Yeah. So I feel
so Hermione is actually uglier potentially in the ripoff. It might not even be Hermione. I don't.
Or hear me out. What if it's not like an actual version of the movie, but it's instead a adult film that she has seen as like a recreation?
That's actually hilarious. I need to know who's scripting these bootleg films. Like, Dick must have gotten her bootlegs from the equivalent of the Walmart dollar bin movie.
You just threw them at her and
didn't love her.
Oh, you're so right.
That's funny. But any other personal notes that I had? I did. I had one about the alphas fighting all the goddamn time because we get to the carriage and Cobra, Jax, and Sadie are just, hanging around. Sadie's making the worst small talk known to man. She's just like, so how about those Fey games, huh? Like, the weather's nice outside. 2 suns. It's great. It's better than the Shifter realm, and no one's buying it. And then Asher and Xerxes get in, and they yap for a little bit, and then Cobra knocks the hell out of Asher, and they start brawling in this small carriage. I need you to imagine 4 6'5" men, wide as walls, in a small carriage, and Sadie's cramped up to the wall, and then they're brawling. She actually gets claustrophobia from all of them being in this carriage. It is that bad.
The brawling doesn't
help. This is the only way they know how to, handle themselves, is just beat each other up, because it's not like they're gonna die anyway.
Oh boy. And then, the games.
The games begin. All right, let's move on to chapters 11 through 15.
Where we get more yapping from Sadie and a little bit from Jax.
Thank you guys so much for your yap fest. It really adds to all the important plot that I'm getting for these books.
God, I can't believe we're 11 chapters in, and the most eventful thing is that Cobra slapped Sadie to knock her out so he wouldn't have to have sex with her and take her virginity on live TV, and now they're going to compete in gladiator games.
And it's funny because that's chapter 2.
Yeah.
That's chapter 2. But to start off with chapters 11 through 15, some key points of note. In chapter 11, we get the fight between Sadie and Demeter, and at this point, Sadie has her numb. So, of course, she flicks on her numb. She fights Demeter valiantly. They, jump from suspended platform to platform. They each get a good couple punches in, but then Demeter gets the upper hand and is choking Sadie over a platform. And as she is succumbing to oxygen loss, she utilizes the shadow snake that she received from Cobra in the first book and has it poison Demeter. And, unfortunately she does this when she's dangling over the platform, and so she falls straight to the bottom, which is like a 200-foot drop. Asher falls down with her and, holds her so that he takes the brunt of the fall, and they both collapse at the bottom. Thankfully, they get rushed off to the medical ward. Sadie is in a coma for 3 days due to this, but I want to note that the boys get down to the bottom, And as they're coming down to the bottom, the whole realm is in chaos. Everybody's fighting each other because of how hyped up they were at this fight. And in the chaos, they rescue Sadie. Arabella comes down from her rafters and takes her to the ER, and they leave Asher on the floor because he can fend for himself. He'll be okay. So he's just bloody left on the floor in this chapter while Sadie gets transported to the ER. And she wakes up from her 3-day coma, and her and Arabella have a little get together. Arabella, confesses that she disguised herself as a man in the Shifter realm using an enchanted ring. Uh, Interesting note, she tells Sadie that her hair can't be cut at all because Sadie's like, "Why don't you just cut your hair?" And she's like, "Actually, I can't, and I don't know why." And I thought it was weird too.
Yeah.
Um, they chat for a little bit. Sadie's like, "What should I call you?" And Arabella's like, "Well, I go by Ara here, so you can call me that." And Sadie's like, "I'm not gonna do that. In fact, I'm not even gonna call you by your given name. I'm gonna call you Aaron because I called you it before and I don't feel like changing." And Arabella says whatever. And I was like, what the fuck? Because that's so random and so assholish of Sadie to say after they reunite. I'm not gonna call you by your name.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna use what I care about.
If you weren't going to call her by the name that she gave you, why did you ask what to call her?
Yes,
This
and
is
she
just
even
an
notes
unneeded thing.
before that she prefers Arabella over Ara. She thinks that fits her more, but doesn't call her that anyway. And then Arabella gives a little insight into why she fled the Fae realm. She has been abused by her mother her whole life, from womb to cradle to 15, and she flees at 15 and works in the Shifter realm for a couple of years, and then at 18, she gets kidnapped by the same guy that kidnapped Sadie in book one. Finds out, or they claim she's a beta, and then she ends up at the castle, and she's been working there since she was 18. And I don't remember how old she is, but I'm gonna assume she's in her 20s. And that's what we get from her. Afterwards, they talk about the half warriors. Arabella notes that all of them are rude, pig-headed, and misogynistic. I guess we kind of get that from the fact that he picked Sadie to be the first contender, but it was like very random. I was like, okay, well, Sadie thinks they're cool, and you say they're not cool, so which one is it? So hopefully we learn about that later. And then she tells us that elite Fae, whatever they are, uh, have powers, but the regular Fae don't. They have like little smidges of power, if you will. Um, and her and Sadie talk, and Sadie's like, "Can you do me a huge favor and like bring Dick here because I got some loose ends I have to tie up?" And Arabella's like, "Yeah, I can use my royal resources, whatever those are, to track him and bring him back to Sadie, either dead or alive." And after they get out of the ER, they meet up with the rest of the alphas, and they're taken to a training village, which is underneath the game stadium. And you can imagine it's like the training village in the Hunger Games, where they have all of the resources needed to live. So medical center, training grounds, housing, you name it, it's there. And while they're there, Sadie comes across art depicting all of the Fae, the water, fire, earth, and air Fae, but notes that there is this fifth statue that she's looking at, and it's a Fae that's prone on the ground and covered in red blood. She inquires about it, and one of the staff there tell her that this statue is a blood fae and that they're a long lost race of fae that the queen has apparently eradicated completely. And so Sadie's like, "Well, why don't you get rid of it?" And they're like, "Well, it's art. We love art," which is very out of left field because fae are considered to be super violent and hypersexual. So
They also
I'm glad they
covet
like their art.
they covet beautiful things. That's why they enslaved Cobra for a sex slave, because he had gems in his skin.
I mean, that's fair, but I also feel like if you went through the effort of erasing an entire race of people, that you wouldn't leave it behind,
Right, you
right? Like
wouldn't
you
you wouldn't
wouldn't let
leave
people.
tracks for people to learn about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was for plot convenience. I think it would
Yeah.
have been a little bit better if she found something that was torn up or in a hidden room that had it, but it's okay. If it moves the plot along, it's good for Jasmin.
We get Sadie and Cobra and Jax and Asher and Xerxes in the training grounds after they're like shown around and see the statue, they're allowed to go get food finally, because I guess maybe they've just been starving for 3 days. I don't know. Um, but she's trying to go get food and stuff, and they alpha bark at her, which I don't understand why they use that at this moment, or how they're able to use their alpha bark if they're not able to shift in this realm.
I don't know. I think it's kind
Um,
of weird that they also can alpha bark at alphas and it work. I don't know
right.
if that's a common trope in alpha, beta,
It is
omega
not.
universes, but yeah, like typically it's just used to control everybody else.
Also, typically in like regular Omegaverse, from what I've read, you don't see alphas interacting with other alphas because that tends to lead to like problems. They don't group together; they group with betas and omegas. But it is what it is.
Non-traditional.
Um,
Woo!
but they all collectively tell her a different command. Cobra tells her to sit down. Or no, Jax tells her to sit down. Cobra tells her don't move, and Asher barks at her to obey. Uh,
She's sad.
and she does because she can't control the urge to do what they want her to do, which is wild. And then Sadie, after they bring food over, finally gives a important question that we really needed for them to talk about. She asks them, "So were we going to talk about the fact that we were all kidnapped from the Beast Realm?" After finding out
They
that
don't say
information,
anything.
and they don't say
Oh,
anything. Jax's response to this is basically, "Shut up, eat your food. We'll talk later."
it would have been great to know though. That's the first
Yeah,
time Sadie's ever like asked a question with the intention of using the information for something else later, and not just been like, "But do you like me?"
right. I just,
And they deny her.
yeah, they're like, no, shut up.
So annoying.
Oh,
But
oh, this is her waking up from the coma is where she duck faced with the doctor.
yeah, yeah, the scene starts with the doctors talking amongst themselves, and Sadie is slowly waking out of her coma so she can hear them talking but can't see anything. And then they're like, frankly, I don't even know how she's managed to live this long. She lost 75% of her blood, which is crazy, by the way. 75%. And she wakes up and she makes a little duck face and she's like, boo, I'm back, bitches. Like,
She no, it says she sits straight up and goes, "Not dead yet, bitches," and then peace signs and duck lips. What?
okay, but it's exactly the same. It's
Yeah,
literally the text meme where they're like, I'm back, bitches.
yeah.
And I'm just, it's so 2023.
It's
Go ahead.
it's that scene from what is it, New Moon, where Jacob comes back and says to Bella, "Where you been, Loca?"
But at least that was funny because they meant it
Yeah.
so serious it was funny. But this one is like, oh, well, you're just trying hard to be funny. I did laugh, admittedly, but it was just because it was so sudden. I was like, what? It took me out for a bit, made me laugh.
Yeah, it's silly.
Okay. I will let you do chapters 16 through 20. You get that
Okay.
privilege.
All right. Let me pull it up. So 16 through 20, we get some Sadie, and we get, I believe, our first actual Xerxes POV. I think this is the
Let's
first time that we
go.
actually see something from his point of view. So the first thing that this starts with is them getting into their sleeping arrangements, and then Sadie and Jax deciding to have some sexy fun time. Sadie initiates by being a little freak.
Little freak.
Dude, that's some freak behavior. Like, I get it. She's horny and lusting after these men, but to look at somebody's nipple ring while they're sleeping and go, man, I really want to lick that, and then doing it is wild behavior.
I kind of
Unhinged, if you
respect it
will.
though, because I feel like I would do the same thing. I'd be like, entertaining.
um, but this leads to them getting hot and heavy, and it wakes Cobra up, and Cobra gets pissed. Him and Jax have a little tussle, and this night ends with them both in Sadie's bed, squishing her and telling her to shut up and go to sleep.
I think she told them to shut up and
No,
go
no,
to
no,
sleep, didn't
no,
she?
no. Cobra looked at her and said, "Kitten, shut up, sleep." And then Jax got mad and said, "Don't talk to her like that." And then they went to sleep.
That's so Jax.
Yeah. Um, that leads to them going to like training the next day, and Demeter confesses that he only fought with Sadie because he knew that the Water Fae, Ryak, was planning to attack Sadie first because he's a sexist POS. and he's cheated to kill people in the games before. And Demeter thought of it as like a protective thing, and Sadie just kind of forgives him, which is a wild thing to
Like, it's
do.
my idol. Like, how could I not? Like, is it irrational of me? Yes, but do I care? No.
She's like, all right, he's hot. I liked him before. I like him even more now. Cool. He then tells her why he went as far as he did in fighting her and tells her about the Song of the Hunt. She completely forgets that this fucking exists. This is important later on. Um, and then the boys get into it and they've decided that they are not going to be having sex with Sadie until at least the games are over. And they inform her of this because while she was having this conversation with Demeter, they were off having their own conversation and they came over all angry and then tell her this. And this is what I imagine Sadie's reaction is in the moment. Because
No, my men. Whatever will I do without my hot, wide men?
whatever will I do? And then her immediate thought is, wait, there's sex clinics here.
Yeah, that was also a point Arabella brought up in a couple of chapters ago about sex clinics that they could just go register at and get sex.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, let's do it. Then we get a little bit of information about Xerxes from his point of view. He's 50. He grew up in the Beast Realm in Serpentis City. He's an Omega. He was bought by 4 dangerous alphas. He's just getting formed to sneak into the Fey realm. We get more information about this again later in the book when he tells Sadie about it, which I don't know why we were told twice, but again, Jasmin Mass loves to reiterate. We learn that the Beast Realm is governed basically by the Alpha Mafia, which is headed by the Dawn. Not all alphas are in the Mafia, and those that aren't are often wealthy and independent. I think you wrote down how common like each of the shifters were.
I mean, I did ask for structure in the Alpha Beta Omega universe, and they finally like gave me some lore about the Beast Realm.
This
I
is
felt it
true.
was important.
There's what, like 1,000,000 nulls, 1,000 betas, 3,000 alphas, and 12 omegas. Because being an omega is rare, and apparently being a male omega is unheard of. Kind of like Sadie's being a female alpha is unheard of.
They're like
Um,
celebrities.
Xerxes feels a really strong desire to protect and comfort Sadie. This is most likely because of his omega instincts, um, and he can't shake the feeling. And we go into the second round of the Fey games. And this
Let's
is
go.
this is a battle royale, and this is a moment where we watch Sadie actually kind of be badass.
I liked her in this chapter. Well,
Um,
the following chapter, not anything after that, but the following chapter, she was kind of cool.
so let's see. We're not missing anything important, are we?
No, we harped about her and Demeter's apology. Oh yeah, and after the first game,
Oh,
Becca touched on it a little bit, but the entire Fey realm just absolutely detests Sadie being there because she's a woman and doesn't deserve to be there. But I thought it was interesting because they have a Fey queen that is ruled for 5 centuries and is like the most feared person in the realm, and she's a woman. And they don't complain about her being in power, but they complain about Sadie being in a competition with other men. I guess they've never had female Fae be badass except for the Queen and Arabella later. I just thought it was odd.
I think the Fae just hate women unless they're sex objects.
For real. And it was crazy because I'm like, if they like violence and power so much, I mean, Sadie put on a decent display, right? Like, the crowd was roaring when she was fighting Demeter, and even when she fell, they got hyped. So much to the point that they started, beating each other up. So I just thought it was very interesting that they hate Sadie so much, especially after that fight. I think it was pretty good considering he's a half warrior and she's a nobody alpha.
I will say I had a quote that made me giggle, and I believe it made you a little giggly too when we read it in these chapters.
Hmm.
It was rationally, it didn't matter. And I was a bad bitch who didn't need a man. Irrationally, I was a woman who just wanted to get railed and told I was pretty.
That was immediately after they told her they wouldn't fuck
Yeah.
her. And I kind of felt that. I was like, I'll give you points for this one, Sadie. I can imagine this coming out of your mouth.
Oh, and then we go into chapter 21 because I'm pretty sure we were left on a cliffhanger for the fight again. Um,
Yes.
I'll let you summarize the next ones.
All right. Well, the general summary of these 5 chapters is that, following the eventful second round of the Fae Games, uh, the gang stumbles upon yet another prophetic Fae poem. Sadie learns some things about herself, and then the group ponder what they have to do next. This competition is going on for a month, so they got to strategize. We start off with the actual second round of the Fae Games. As Becca discussed, it was a battle royale. The last person standing gets 100 points for their team. And the alphas in this fight are allowed to shift. Except Cobra, because he still has the giant diamond collar on his neck that prevents him from using his powers, or at least shifting. So he's just kind of there. Sadie gets an opportunity to show off her fighting prowess. She turns into a saber-tooth tiger as per usual and fights the half warrior twins, Noah and Shane. And let me tell you, she doesn't just fight them, she brutalizes them. They're coming at her with claws, fangs, and fire. And she kicks one of them across the arena and then aggressively bites, nips, and plays with one of the other ones. Like he's unconscious, and she does this for 10 minutes. So just imagine, the cat and mouse. And he's the mouse and she's the cat. And she plays with his limp body for 10 minutes, rips out chunks of him, and then tosses him aside when she's like, oh shit, I've been killing this guy. Like, hold on, like put him down.
Let me just drop this.
Exactly. And then she gets knocked out unconscious because she gets stabbed by this ice dagger or ice it's an ice spear with daggers embedded into it, which is crazy because we don't put daggers in spears. I think the author was talking about a harpoon, like a serrated harpoon, but this is what I conjured in my mind when I thought of an ice spear with daggers embedded into it. Because Sadie comments, she's like, "This weapon wasn't meant for bludgeoning," and I'm like, "Oh, you think? You think with the 50 blades on it, it's meant for bludgeoning? That's crazy." But she gets stabbed in the chest, and gets knocked out, I believe, due to blood loss. But right before, I just want to paint this picture for you guys. There are like 30 contestants battling it out. The boys tell Sadie that she needs to stay behind them because they obviously want to protect her. And she's like, no, I'm going to do things my own way. And she goes and fights these guys. And she looks back at her group. And Jax is fighting Demeter. And Cobra is knocked out on the floor because he can't shift at all. He got hit. Apparently, we find out later that he got hit by a giant Earth Fae boulder and got knocked out immediately after she left. And Asher's been defending him this whole time. Poor boy. He hates that man, but he'll protect him. But Sadie gets knocked out, and that's basically the extent of that battle. She wakes up, I think, at the end of that day or the following day. She's thankfully not in a 3-day coma. But Arabella's, harping her about losing a bet on her. She put down 5,000 coins, which I don't know what that equates to in our currency, but I imagine that's a lot. But she also tells her when she wakes up that her forces have managed to locate Dick and they're getting ready to capture him. And I just want you to note that we're in this hospital, and in the first book, we learned that unicorn bones are used to help heal things. I didn't even know we had unicorns in this universe, quite frankly. But the doctor lets Sadie know that she needs to be careful, like she can't move around a lot because they pumped her full of enchantments to heal her and also filled her chest cavity with unicorn bone chips. I want you to think about her as a giant unicorn chip maraca. Okay? That's what they did to fix her. And bones, last I checked, don't dissolve in the body.
They don't even dissolve in the bath. We know that they don't
stay
dissolve.
With her for the rest of her life.
I just feel like that would be more of a hazard because they're gonna puncture lungs and other organs in the chest cavity.
They don't care. They're gonna puncture it and then immediately heal it afterward, I guess. She's just the living embodiment of healing. But then right as the gang, and by gang I mean Arabella and Sadie, right as they get ready to leave, the doctor does a little twitch, falls unconscious, and then recites Fae poetry. And the prophecy for this reads, "Blood burns red, through the air it's blown. Blood pours bright across the fated throne. Blood draws true and rips apart the mind. Blood creates pain, it kills the weak-spined." And, I kind of like that poem. I like the last line a lot.
Yeah.
That's metal.
What
way better than the first one.
Yeah.
I don't remember the first one, but I think the
Oh.
first one, I remember I read it and I thought some of the sentences were incoherent and it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Um,
But
it
this
made
one's
sense.
direct.
It was just pretty lackluster.
Just boring. That's probably
Yeah.
why I don't remember it. But then Sadie and Arabella are, they flee. They're like, oh my god, another poem. Oh my god, we gotta leave. So they leave, and then they think about that poem. And Sadie thinks that maybe it has something to do with Arabella, given that she is the princess of the realm. May have something to do with her and the Fey Queen, and also the Bloodface statue that she saw in the training village previously. They reunite with the Alphas again, and they share the news to the Alphas. And Xerxes brings up a point that the possession of people to dispense poetic poetry was done by a long lost Fae with the ability to control people, and that these Fae possessed a banned element of death. Now, at this point, we know that the only lost race of Fae are these blood Fae. So, put two together. Maybe it's a blood Fae that's doing this, but they're supposed to be extinct. So you gotta ask yourself, like, who's actually controlling these people?
That's a big
And then
question.
they ask, yeah, and then they ask Arabella to tell them the poem. So she recites it, and then they're confused. They're like, "Well, what does that mean? Like, we don't know what those words mean." And Sadie's like, "What are you guys talking about? It literally means exactly what it says it means." And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
They're like,
And
hold
she's
on,
like, "Yeah." She's like,
backtrack.
"Did I die? Do I have a sudden like ability to talk in a different language or what?" And uh I don't remember who brings it up specifically, but one of them is like, that's not English or whatever language they speak normally.
I th-
That's like ancient Fey language.
I
Go
think it
ahead.
was Xerxes because Xerxes would kind of be able to know about the history of the Fae because he works with the Fae Queen.
That's true. But I'm going to assume it's Xerxes, lets them know that the poem was actually spoken in an ancient Druid language. And personal nitpick, but it shouldn't be Druid. It should be Druidic, or that's like saying the ancient Japan language. That doesn't make sense. That's not how that works.
The
Um,
spoken kanji.
exactly. And the highlighted part is the fact that the only people who can speak and understand this language are Fae. So we find out Sadie's potentially part Fae, which is
Hey.
crazy.
And
uh,
then they're offered a nice spa day.
hmm As like winnings for the last
Yeah,
competition, because Jax had apparently won the last competition.
because he ripped Demeter's wings off.
That was metal, by the way. That's awesome. I wish I got to see the rest of that fight, but it just cuts off right when Sadie goes unconscious.
Yeah, I wish we would have too. I wish we would have like switched POVs right there to Jax.
Yeah, that would have been a time I wanted Jax's POV to be there,
Yeah.
and we didn't get it.
Oh, and
But
then
oh,
there's
go
some.
ahead. I didn't know if you wanted to take over.
uh, they get their little spa day. Jax is given the opportunity to bring somebody. He chooses Sadie first, and then the doctor's like, no, 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 she can't have a massage. That'll fuck up her unicorn bone chest.
They're gonna start poking out of her torso soon.
Um, so he instead takes Cobra, and Sadie is left with the other guys after they're
Mhm.
told what the next game is going to be. You want to tell them about the next game?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll tell him. I'll tell him. Okay. So the third game is handpicked by the Fey Queen, and the object of the game is for the teams to seduce a Fey vampire. They have a week to figure out how to seduce a Fey vampire, and those that are unable to seduce it will be brutally murdered. Um, and if we remember from the first book, the only way alphas can die is if their blood is drained from them and their head is decapitated. So this is one of the few entities in the realm that have the ability to drain all their blood immediately.
Which
And then, oh,
I just love that they reiterate this and then they add another way they can die.
yeah. I mean, it's a little later though.
No,
You spoiling them a little too much.
no,
That's
no.
in book 3, guys.
Basically, they're telling us that you have to basically bleed out and then chop their head off, and then they're telling us that a vampire can also just suck them dry and kill them.
Well, to be fair, I think it's noted at some point in this book that the vampire can suck their blood, and then I think Jax like reassures Sadie. He's like, "Well, they can't chop our head off. I mean, somebody else can chop your head off. You're out of blood. You're not gonna move or anything. But a vampire would be the most effective. All they have to do is just take a machete and go to town on you after they suck your blood
Or,
out."
do what Cobra did in book 1 and scissor a man's throat.
That works too. That works too. I still can't get over that. I thought the scissoring was inside the throat, not outside. It's so stupid.
You're like, where'd he get scissors? And I'm like, that was his hand.
Mm-hmm. And at the spa day, we get whose POV? I'm pretty sure it's Jax's POV. And they're at the spa, and the only thing of note at the spa is that after they have their spa day, him and Cobra are like getting seriously dicked down. They're fucking in the masseuse's chair, I think. They're like still in the building,
yeah.
I think. Which is crazy, but I can imagine that Cobra's a voyeur for sure. Jax is probably into it a little bit too.
Yeah, probably. Being as they do it in front of Asher all the time back at the fortress, so.
Yep. And then they bone, and then Jax is like, "Damn, I really wish Sadie was here so we could all bone together." And that was the notable point of that chapter.
And we get a really sweet moment that is probably the sweetest moment in the entirety of everything that this writer has ever written.
This is the only chapter that made me happy, like right out the get-go. I just want to let y'all know.
This was very much a kick your feet, giggle kind of chapter, and I wish we would have got more of them.
Mm-hmm. The last chapter, because Sadie is bummed that she didn't get to go have a spa day, Asher actually ends up taking her and Xerxes out for a spa day. He gives her a bath and washes her hair, really domestic, very cute. Like, she's enjoying the bath. She's like moaning with ecstasy because he is such a good masseuse. And then after that, they go get their nails done. They get like the premium pedicure treatment. They get a facial treatment. Asher gets black nails. Sadie gets red to match her eyes, and Xerxes gets clear because Sadie, quote unquote, says he's boring.
Not wrong. She's like, you could have got purple to match your eyes, like I did. And he was like, no.
I think it would have been nice. And then Cobra and Jax come back, and they're all just sitting in the massage chair, like with the face mask, the bubblegum pink face mask on. I remember. I thought it was really cute. And they're just having a great time. Like, I would love to see this drawn out. It's just them with their pretty pink chairs, pretty pink masks, getting their nails done, massage, you name it. Xerxes is uncomfortable, but he's kind of into it.
Oh,
so cute.
In this, Sadie asks him again what shampoo he uses.
She's asked like twice, and he keeps ignoring her.
She's like, what's your hair care routine? And he's just like, you'll never know.
And then, before we move on to the next chapter, I just want to go back to the fight scene. Immediately after Sadie gets stabbed with this ice spear, Asher comes over and takes it out of her chest with his hands in his ram form, and has like what is described as an odd shape-shifted head. And me and Becca, we've read this book like 3 times, and we are still deliberating on what exactly Asher is shifting into, because I thought he was just a regular ram.
After further thought, I think maybe he was in the process of unshifting. Like, he was trying to shift back into human form so that he could help her. And it just resulted in like this mid moment of everything looking really fucked up so that he could have hands.
It'd be really nice if the author described that in any more detail, so I could get a picture of him de-shifting or something.
You remember me in book 1 going, he's a half ram, but he's like centaur?
Yeah, I mean, centaur would have been fine, but it's just, if Jax is a bear, with spikes, by the way, not just regular bear, then
he's
why is Asher this weird, deformed ram?
Wait a second. What if he's one of those rams that look like the devil? Like the what people associate with the devil, because he's called the devil.
You mean like the half man with the ram 2 feet? He has a little fuzzy butt?
Yeah, what if he has fuzzy butt?
He's like 14 feet tall. He's just a giant man ram. What the... Absolutely not. Hate that. You're telling me he rams into people with this big human head with his giant ram horns and
No, hold
Ray
on.
as a spear? Oh my
Hold on.
gosh.
I'm gonna pop this in the chat and then we'll have it edited in to add. This is what I'm imagining.
Oh my gosh. I refuse. That
Yeah,
makes me
like a
so
Sadar.
mad. I hate that. No, he needs to be a regular fuzzy ram. Oh yeah, he also talks in this form. That's
Yeah.
another thing that we're confused about because Jax can't talk. He just roars. Sadie also can't talk. Cobra can obviously talk because he, is a human, basically. But oh my gosh, I don't want to think about that. I'm just gonna pretend he's a ram, and I'm gonna pretend that chapter didn't actually exist. Like that entire segment didn't exist.
Yeah, that was just Sadie hallucinating. It's okay.
Hmm. Oh, and then another thing before we move on. Um, After that battle, it turns out the Fey Realm was really fucking with Sadie's like tiger form. So much to the point they have 180'd away from despising her for being a woman in the games and actually revere her. They have a little Sadie fan club, and Sadie eats this up because she's been abused all her life, has no fans except the four men constantly fawning over her. But that's besides the point. Um, and they have a little fan symbol, which is them taking their index and pointer finger and placing it like two fangs down the sides of their mouth, like a little saber-tooth tiger. Which I'm gonna add like half a point for another Hunger Games
Yeah.
reference because this is definitely referencing the District 12
The
tribute with Rue, except that one was way better.
yeah, the salute
Yeah, but
from
that one actually mattered,
yeah.
It was due to character death and was to unite all the districts through the mercy in an otherwise brutal game. But this was just Sadie being brutal for brutality's sake and the Fae eating it up.
They were like, "Damn, it's kind of hot that she was just playing with that man's dead body." Fuck yeah.
Fan club.
Oh, you also wanted to mention that saber-toothed tigers in fact do not have tails.
Yes, actually, another gripe. During the Fae games, Sadie gets pushed onto her back by one of the twin tigers, and she uses her tail to flip herself over as a kangaroo would. Which, FYI, saber-tooth tigers don't have complete tails. They have little bob tails like Manx's, okay? They don't have tails that they can use to flip themselves over. It took me out of my element, guys. I love animals. It took me out of my element. I was like, Jasmin, this is not a saber tooth. To the point that I had to look it up to reconfirm that saber tooths don't have tails. It was just a minor gripe. Thank you.
I just wanted you to be able to have the floor for that.
Thank you for letting me have that energy to
I'm so
to
happy.
spill out.
I feel like I had some quotes to pop up at some point, but we'll go back at the end and bring them up.
All right, we're moving on to chapters 26 and 30. And this one, we get some Sadie POV, we get another Xerxes POV, and we get another Cobra POV. These chapters focus on Arabella giving Sadie an enchanted ring, and Xerxes finds himself increasingly needing Sadie's approval due to her recent kindnesses that we will discuss later. The gang goes to a Fae party, and the Queen's wild announcement induces some chaos. And then the Alphas later confront the Half Warrior Alphas.
Because why wouldn't
And
they?
yeah, that's all they do is confront people. To start off strong with chapter 26, Arabella and Sadie meet up again, and Arabella gives Sadie a ring. And Sadie initially is like, I'm not marrying you.
I have
I'm
syphilis.
sorry.
That's what Sadie says. I have syphilis.
Oh yeah, she says she can't say I don't want this. She can't say I won't marry her. She says I have syphilis because that would be better than any of the other options. And Arabella's like, wow, if you do for real, you need to get checked out, girl.
Dude, Arabella's like, I wouldn't marry you. I like dick. It's okay. Put it on.
At least she's abrupt. And we find out that the ring enchants away Sadie's scars that she's so, concerned about. And it's a really cute, heartfelt moment for once between two characters. And then That's basically the bulk of that chapter. Actually,
Yeah.
is her getting the ring, and then they're like, "All right, guys, we got a party to prepare for, so let's get ready." And then the girls go do girly things. And then after that, we get Xerxes' chapter, and it's his POV when they're training. Him and the other alphas. I think Sadie's also there.
Yeah.
And he's commenting on Sadie's kindness to him over the last week from providing him with pillows and blankets when he's sleeping because he is uncomfortable that he can't nest, and nesting is still a thing in this universe. She'll thank him when he guards her in the showers because she's self-conscious in the showers and other things like that. And all of this kindness is kicking his omega hormones into high gear, and he's constantly wanting to gain her approval. And Xerxes learns about Sadie's scars. He gets really emotional. He gets really protective of her about it. And the boys don't like that. Not at all. They're like, you need to stay the hell away from our woman. And Xerxes like, okay, well, maybe I actually like her. And that's never brought up later to like at all. He brings it up once and nobody talks about it.
But then this goes
Go
back
ahead.
into Sadie and Arabella having another girly moment getting ready for the party.
Yes. They have their little girly pop era. And I believe Arabella is talking about how she escaped from the Fae realm. And she's like, yeah, I just have this little, teleporter stone that I can just use to go places. And Sadie's like, okay, but how did you get that? Isn't that like super rare? And Arabella's like, yeah, actually, I masqueraded as a dock worker at one of the Fae ports, and I slit the throat of an infamous fire Fae that was wearing it. He was trafficking illicit stones through the realm and needed a way to transport them without getting caught. You should have seen him. He gurgled like a baby. So dramatic. And she rolled her big blue eyes like she wasn't talking about slitting a man's throat. Which that was crazy, by the way, this little segue.
Yeah. She's just like, yeah.
I'm like, how does nobody know that
Well,
you slit his throat? He's
you know
infamous.
what? Let's circle back to book one for a moment, though. You remember when she was in class and Sadie was like, "Yeah, no, I would just kill them. Problem solved." And Arabella, when she was Erin, was like, "Yeah, sometimes I just want to kill people too."
There's that, but then there's just like, yeah, I murdered this man. He's actually super powerful, crazy, and I stole his shit. That's me.
Just girly things.
I think it also didn't help that she was like 15 when she did this. I was like, oh, okay,
I'm like,
badass
all
alert.
right, fuck,
Hmm
damn.
And then after that, the girls get dolled up, and we head to the party.
I'm so
The
excited.
party's apparently supposed to have a lot of Fae, like royalty and other important people. We never see these other people. I
I
don't know
do
why they
think
brought
okay,
it up.
okay. I do think that we've mixed this up a bit because there are two parties happening at the same time. The party that Sadie's group is going to is for the competitors. It's supposed to be like a celebration before they probably almost die to the vampire date. Um,
Hmm
so that's happening while the queen is having like a dignitaries meeting party type thing, and Arabella is supposed to be at the party with her mom, but is not.
Why did you bring that up? Like the dignitaries. I'm just
I don't know. She wrote it really confusing, but I've separated it. It's supposed to definitely be two different parties.
what the man. I hate this book.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, fine. There's no dignitaries here. It's just
but
horny
but
Fae
you know what there is? Wall piss.
wall piss. Yes, the girls arrive at the party. They're grinding on the dance floor. None of the Fae want to touch them. Sadie, I think, like breaks her hip or something.
And gets a
Arabella has
vagina
to pop it
cramp.
back into place, like in the middle of the dance floor. And then she's like, "Nah, come over here. I got something to show you." And it's this mysterious liquid from the wall that's fizzy and yellow like piss. And they drink it, and they're like, "This isn't alcohol. It doesn't get us drunk." But it makes everything sparkly. So we've taken to consider it as LSD, like liquid LSD.
We must also add that Arabella helped the palace mixologist develop this, and she calls it sparkle juice.
And no, I think they're the only two that go and drink it. So
I
I
think
can't
it
tell if
might
she made
actually be
it.
piss.
Yeah, I can't tell if she made it exclusively for Sadie or if she's like, oh man, everybody's gonna love this, and then nobody drinks it but her.
To be fair, it's hidden by a fucking lever in the wall.
That's true. That's true.
The walls and drinks being in the wall and this author are wild. Why has it happened at two separate parties now?
I'm just mad that it's yellow. Like we could have picked a different
It couldn't
color,
have
like
been
a
like an.
brown.
Why did she not make it electric blue like her hair?
I don't get. She should. She would in fact make hair
Yeah, what?
colored
Yeah, why wouldn't she?
liquid. Disappointing
That's a very
opportunity.
Arabella thing to do, is make it surround her. Give her a little bit of herself in something.
It's a missed opportunity from Jasmine once again.
Anyway, then we get the announcement from the queen where she's like, "Hey everybody, time to get horny, fuck bitches, and get lit."
It's enough for me. That's enough for them, actually.
Yeah, they're like, "Ah, say less," and then the fucking fae all around them start stripping clothes and having sex.
It's a little intense,
And then
but good for them.
I'm pretty sure at the same time while this is happening, they put scenes of Cobra's um days in
Yeah,
sex
they just have
prison.
random sex montages of Cobra and other Fae getting it on screen, and then everybody gets on turned on,
Yeah, they're
and
like,
then
"All right, bet."
it's on, and then the two meet up with the half warriors, Demeter, Noah, and Shane. I'm pretty sure Noah's the one that's flirting with Sadie, and she can't recall which brother's the one that she kicked across the floor and knocked out, and which one is the one that she mauled nearly to death. uh, but them and Arabella bicker for quite a bit. Arabella thinks they're misogynistic pieces of trash, and the three warriors think that Arabella is a pompous, prissy girl who's never worked a day in her life. And then Noah takes Sadie out onto the dance floor. He's flirting with her. She's like mildly uncomfortable where she doesn't want him to touch her, but she's overall having a good time because she's out dancing with somebody. The boys are not happy about that. In fact, they're so unhappy about that that they pull Noah aside and pummel the ever living shit out of him in a different room. Like they just take turns kicking his body over and over again. It's very brutal. Xerxes at one point like crucifies him to the floor.
Yeah, stabs his hands into the floor with his knives.
Actually crazy. I felt a little bad for Noah. Like it's one thing to be like, "Hey, don't talk to our girl," and it's another thing to like nearly die for it. I know they
To be
technically
fair,
can't die,
to be
but
fair, they said you talk to her or you touch her, you die. They were just keeping their word, and honestly, integrity.
integrity. Thank
The
God
first
somebody
time,
has integrity in this book.
yeah, the first time that as a collective whole, they actually did what they said they were going to do. Just let it happen, honestly. Oh.
And some things that we had brought up when we were reading about this. Arabella apparently has three different hair colors. Her hair has been referenced as aqua, electric blue, and turquoise, which are all wildly different blues.
This is true.
So we'll never know, I guess. I'll have to swap out the MS Paint art.
Yeah, we'll just
for
have
some
to
other
grab a
colors.
couple of them. We also get this funny little bicker back and forth between Cobra and Arabella in these chapters.
I forgot this quote was included in this chapter.
I love that I surprised you with it again.
Thank you so much. I've seen this like 4 times and I get surprised every time. I'm pretty sure this is when they're prepping for the party and Cobra's like seeing Arabella and Sadie dolled up for the first time, but they don't like each other at all. Her
uh,
turquoise eyes flashed, and she turned to Cobra with a smile. I look better than your immature snake ass, bay whore, alpha skank, blue-haired freak, creepy rock skin fucker. Cobra opened his mouth, and Jack slammed his palm across Cobra's lips to muffle the sound. It's like, that's enough out of you. Get over here.
He's like,
Pulls him out
dude,
of the room.
it's the way that Jax's mind probably went. If he doesn't shut the fuck up, it's gonna cost Sadie her only actual friend.
For real. Nah, Arabella definitely would have like
Oh,
stabbed
yeah.
him or something.
She would
I
have
would love
fucking.
to see a fight between these two.
You know what? And he can't really do much, so I think Arabella can knock the fuck out of him.
And this is more words he sent to a woman that wasn't Sadie in like years. So
Yeah.
props to Cobra.
Growth, honestly. Oh.
And then I don't have a picture of this quote, but I will find it and put it up later. But I remember Sadie saying something, and I was like, "Girl, what are you talking about? Don't lie."
I was usually a boss at repressing emotions and ignoring them, but I kept waking up in the middle of the night. My most common nightmare, everyone screamed obscenities at me in the Fae language, and I screamed at them that I wasn't a Fae, but they beat me with sticks until I was covered in blood. Every time I woke up, convinced I was bleeding to death.
Dark. That's a dark dream. But she did lie. She has never, in fact, repressed her emotions. Well,
Yeah.
I guess she did when she was younger and she got the numb, but now that she's a grown adult who can yap her mouth off to other people that won't beat her up, she doesn't repress shit.
No, she's just like, fuck around, find out.
Oh, also, I remember you had a quote about Cobra hissing in this
I
chapter. You were
do.
very excited.
We see Cobra kind of start to embody being snake-like more in this. We have a chapter from Cobra's POV, and basically he's like, I started hissing, and I don't remember at which point I did that, but it was recently, and I started to do it to display emotions of annoyance and anger, which shows me that he is also not fully hindered by this collar, and that perhaps he could get out of it without, maybe, needing the queen to remove it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I really think Cobra could benefit from having a snake tongue.
Yeah, me too.
I think it
Um,
would just be a nice character quirk, given that he can't actually physically transform into anything.
I just, I feel like, due to the fact that we know this author reads Harry Potter fan fiction and loves it so much that it inspires her, I think that Cobra being named Cobra is very intentional, and I think he's meant to mirror Draco Malfoy.
That's unfortunate. But it fits. I didn't
Also,
I didn't read Harry Potter, but I just think it's funny to imagine a Draco
um,
Malfoy character insert.
well, you also have to think about the fact Draco is a Slytherin, so using that inspiration to name a character Cobra, very easy to do.
Very on the nose.
Yeah, and it's just
But he's not blonde. So
no,
that's how we circumvent that, and we
yeah.
put rocks in his skin.
Give him the little Uzi treatment. You know, it's fine.
Oh my
Oh.
gosh, can you imagine like one of his snakes? I know they can't technically die, but can you imagine one of his shadow snakes dying and then a little diamond falls out? And he just has this like crater in his hole or in his skin.
I would assume it would heal until like the
I mean,
last one fell out.
well, did they put diamonds in his skin or was he born with them?
I I want to say that he wasn't born with them, but I can't talk about that until book 3. So,
That's fair. I gotta
um
reread book 3. I don't remember nothing.
yeah, we learn more around Cobra later on. In book 3, we get a lot more of who Cobra is as a person and why he is as a person.
See, but I can imagine that they just fall out. He has to like reglue them into his skin every
He's
once in a
just got
while.
Mod Podge in his pocket and he's just dabbing it back on.
He punches somebody and he's like, "Where's my gem?" And it's like in their skin. And since the snakes are emotional, or at least they're emotional to him, he could probably just be like, angry snake, disappointed that it's out of his skin. Gotta pop back in, like, sorry, little guy.
um, I know that you also had a concern about the tattoos that the warriors have.
Oh, yeah, okay. So Jasmine Mass, she describes these as tribal tattoos, right? Doesn't doesn't clarify their design. I think a picture would have been nice to include in this picture or in this book about what they're supposed to look like because as far as we're aware, there's no tribes in this universe. So, what tribe? There's a plethora of tribes in the human world and our world with a bunch of different tattoo customs. And you can't just say tribal tattoos. I mean, everybody's gonna, I guess, assume Hawaiian, but that's not good enough.
Yeah,
Like, we
that's
need something more.
and you can't even go off of that because at least in the Midwest, what we see in tribal is more indigenous.
Yeah,
So even then, it's a wild difference. So Jasmine
yeah.
Mass, please, I don't care if you even respond to us. Just like post a response somewhere. What kind of tribal tattoos are we talking about? Do you have your own creative idea for what they are? It's just lackluster here that you were just like tribal and then walked away from it. You had an
It would
opportunity
have,
to create something cool and unique.
yeah, it would have maybe been helpful if they were on the cover of any of the books,
Yeah.
or the bookend, or the spine, or something. Commission an artist,
Um,
something.
as like the chapter title divider, like where some authors put like little pictures to represent who's talking or whatever. You could have put like a little thing up there.
Hmm.
But it is what it is, I suppose.
It is. And then, as a disclaimer, before we move into these next set of chapters, there is depictions of character rape in this next cluster of chapters. So, forewarning, we'll
Yeah.
give you a timestamp to skip to, so you can
Yeah.
avoid it.
I will timestamp this so that you can skip it. I do think that I think that all of these chapters might actually regards around sex in this little bundle. So
Yeah, but the rape I think is only prevalent in
I think it's
one.
just 31. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll timestamp it for y'all. Um, but after the events of the last chapter, Arabella and Sadie decide in their, I'll say drunken state. They decide to go to the sex clinic, the famed sex clinic that Arabella mentioned to Sadie before, and see if they can get dick down for the night since the alpha boys aren't going to do anything about it. And they're both virgins, so they're like, why not? It's fun. So the two go to the sex clinic. They fill out over, I think,
30.
20 pages,
I
30.
thought you said 30 yesterday.
I, you know what? I'll assume 30. 30 pages of questionnaires regarding sex, kinks, any conditions they have, abilities, etc., etc. They each go into their own rooms, and the uh, front desk woman informs them that they'll pick out somebody who best suits them. It's kind of like fill out a questionnaire and they send it to every person in the Fae room. Apparently, everybody in the Fae room has access to the sex
So
clinic, so they get notified.
I I think of this very clinically. I'm thinking like IVF, where you get notified when there's a match for like what you're looking for genetics wise.
Hmm.
But like on a Tinder like app, so you can be like, oh, this person's at the clinic today. They're in my descriptors. Swipe right.
I think
On
it's
my
just crazy
way.
that everybody has it because it implies that people are sat down like, okay, you have to install this app, and then they're like, what's it for? And they're like, it's for sex. You'll be using this later, probably
I
like when they hit puberty or something.
I do think that it is a part of like the breeding program, which might be a little bit why Arabella was like, I don't really want to go because she had mentioned earlier in the books that her mom was going to force her into the breeding program.
Yeah, they have a Fae breeding program, and she was gonna be put in there at like 15,
Yeah,
which is crazy.
crazy.
But the two get put in their separate rooms. Sadie finds a match, and her match requires that she wears like a hood that's supposed to blindfold her and like reduce her other senses so her hearing is distorted. So whatever she hears, she can hear, but it's distorted.
I
So voices are changed.
I imagine it's one of those burlap sacks, but it's just enchanted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Enchanted burlap sack.
And I want to imagine that it's just got like a smiley face drawn over it because that seems like a very characteristic of who did this.
Um, but she's there, and eventually her partner comes into the room. Her partner takes out like a little vibrator toy and like teases her for, I can only imagine, at least an hour.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, it's well over an hour.
yeah, they just keep like bringing her to the edge of climax and then taking it off and repeating this process over and over again. And at one point, she gets tired and she's like, "Please just let me come, God, please." And they don't.
And
Um,
at another point, she's almost begging them to stop, right?
uh-huh.
She's like, "Let me come or stop." And
Yeah.
they don't. They just continue, and an hour-long sexual assault was not needed.
Yeah. Do you remember how she gets the hood off?
Um, she starts crying, and one of the guys realized that she's crying.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah. Um,
So they take the hood off, and it's not just one person that was in that room. It was actually all four or all three of the alphas and Xerxes in that room. And I'm pretty sure it was Jax with the vibrator. I
yeah.
think you mentioned that to me earlier.
Yeah.
Um, and they had been in that sex clinic. They got the notification. They came over and they basically just raped her for like an hour and a half. And
Um,
she was very upset about it.
I will say I don't think that they matched with her because during this little thing where Cobra reveals that he has marked her, he's branded her. Um, we find out that he can track Sadie through his snake, and I think that
That's
that
true.
is him following her through the snake. I don't, and because he makes a big deal when they're leaving the clinic, um, about stopping and punching the receptionist because they just let all four of those men into Sadie's room.
Oh, that's true. And even if it wasn't Cobra, it's not like Xerxes probably didn't have the app. He's been in the Faerun for most of
Right.
his life.
But it's just weird. That
Hmm.
was really unneeded of them to do.
Yeah, and it like made me hate all of them in a way that I was mad about because, Jax is like the one nice guy of the group. And I already hated Cobra, but it's like one thing to hate Cobra because he's a piece of shit that is really violent and prone to bursts of anger, and then it's another thing to hate him because he sexually assaulted like his main love interest, all of
Right.
them. But
And and the thing is they were doing so well, actually starting to like bond and shit, and this is like an utter betrayal. Like honestly worse than what Asher did to them. Because
mhm.
he assumed that he was getting them returned back to where they belonged. He didn't know that this is what he was setting them up for.
Yeah. And just the fact that Jax is supposed to be a protector, and you would think that of all the people in this group, that Xerxes and Jax would be the one to
Right.
tell them to not do this, to like don't go through with it. She's been through enough already. Why are we putting her through this? Just let her do what she needs to do. After they already told her they wouldn't have sex with her. But then
Eh,
they all participated, and it just
yeah, because they all had their
sucked.
fucking dicks out. They weren't gonna
Yeah.
have sex with her, but they sure were gonna jack off to her, and that's just irritating as shit. You guys can't
Yeah.
you can't say that you're not gonna have sex with her and then be mad when she goes to find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's
I
just
mean,
something you have to get over with.
they literally could have just written this chapter as her actually having sex with somebody else, and then they get frustrated about it, and then her being like, "Well, you can't be mad because you said you wouldn't fuck me," and then that could have been like a confrontation. But this was just wholly unneeded,
And then
and just
we
kind of like ruined the romance for all of them for me.
yeah. I think the only one that really has an excusable moment in it is Xerxes, because I don't think that he had any part of touching her, and I think that he was probably just stood in the corner, scared of what he
Hmm.
could actually do because he's got a job to protect these guys, and if he fucks his orders, he's fucked.
Hell, he's
Um,
probably the one who heard her crying.
Probably actually, he probably felt it in his fucking chest because he senses her emotions more heavily.
Hmm.
Um, it was just really unneeded.
Yeah.
And then we just get a fast forward through fucking 3 days.
Yeah, that was also weird.
I'm sorry, but I feel like we should have. If you were going to give us this assault, you needed to give us the aftermath of it too.
And the Sadie's like relatively nonchalant about it. Like, yes, she gets angry, or at least like notes the fact that she's still irritated with them. But then anytime she's ever irritated with them, she always looks at them and then she drools over their appearance and then gets non-irritated, which doesn't help her case because it makes me take her very unseriously.
It gives bimbo, like,
Hmm.
and not in like the fun, quirky kind of way. It's just Jasmine Mass writes her to be an empty-headed, lusty, horny, teenage-like girl that has never been around men she finds attractive because all she's ever been around is dick and abuse, and not like
Yeah.
sex dick, but like evil abuser dick.
She can't like keep her emotions consistent without drooling over other men. It really just makes me not take her as a real character. Takes me out of the book quite a few times. After that chapter, we get like a 3-day time skip. We're coming up on the third Fae game, which again is the seducing a Fae vampire. Um, None of them have talked about how they're gonna accomplish this. We learn a little bit later that Arabella was taken out of the sex clinic also by the half warriors, courtesy of her mom. And then after that, we get to the arena for the third game. And then Sadie looks over to the TV to see Arabella, and she's absolutely littered in bruises and cuts and just sunken into herself, won't look up. She has a collar. Her mom is smirking at her every chance she gets. And then it's implied that the half warriors had beaten her up as punishment, um, for going to the sex clinic, and then her mom ends up branding her back about it. I don't remember if
Yeah,
it's mentioned in this book, but she does in
I.
fact brand her.
It is not mentioned in this one. It's mentioned towards the beginning of the next one.
Well, I won't say what she branded her with,
Yeah,
I'll let you know they branded her.
yeah. It's not pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
We meet the vampire.
His
That's
name's
fun.
Lothair.
And Lothair,
Mm-hmm.
he cannot be seduced in the sexual senses.
Yeah, he instead feeds off of powerful. So basically, fey vampires, as they get more powerful, they have to feed on blood that is proportional in strength. So it's very difficult to find strong, powerful vampires because there's not enough powerful entities to sustain them. But Lothair is considered a very powerful vampire, so he needs really powerful blood or he won't accept you and he'll kill you. Sadie notes that her numb finally recharged, and then the Alpha team goes first. So Jax goes up. Lothair deems him unworthy and drinks his blood, and he passes out. Asher goes up. Lothair also thinks he's unworthy, that he'll grow into himself in a couple hundred years or so, and drains his blood. And then he drinks Cobra's blood and deems him a failure because he was too emotional and not cold blooded enough, which I think is supposed to be like a show of character development from Cobra, that he has gotten more attached to Sadie over the course of the book. Which, coming off of the low of chapter 31, isn't very great, but it is
Yeah.
what it is.
If they would have done
Uh,
without 31, like not adding it in, this would have been a really big moment.
hmm And then lastly, we have Sadie. She goes up. Lothair takes a little sip of her blood, and he is like, I haven't tasted blood this powerful in so long. And that she tastes like the Song of the Hunt. And that was like what a sleeper agent code in Sadie, because after he mentions the Song of the Hunt, she reflects back on all the stuff that she's seen, the blood fae, the poetry, the numb in her head, and everything finally clicks together. And right before Lothair can drink the rest of her blood while she's here reflecting, Xerxes stabs him twice in the head with knives, since he's not part of the competition. And Sadie brings out a cobra snake to the little one on her back to poison him. They don't really work. He's just still there. He doesn't die.
He's just
He
like,
just
all
has,
right, you know what? Fine, whatever.
yeah, he just has the knives embedded in his head. And he's like, all right, you had your fun.
um,
And he's holding up Sadie. I don't remember if he's choking her, but he's at least holding her so she can't move. Uh, and there's Fae Queen guards. They're approaching the stadium with machetes in their hand, 3 guards for 3 alpha men. So Sadie pieces together that the Queen had it, plotted all along, that she was going to chop off their heads and kill them all in this moment. Which, as a side note, defeats the purpose of the Fae Queen sending them back to the Beast realm. By the way, I don't know if she got paid for it yet, but she's supposed to bring them back alive. So I don't
yeah.
really know if she's gonna get away with killing them.
And this is a crazy moment of foreshadowing because if she would have succeeded in this, I'm just gonna say it, it would have started a full-out war because of who was requesting they were returned back to the Beast Realm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't think the Beast Realm knew who was coming back. I don't think, considering how surprised certain people were about who was there.
Well, I will say that with a little bit of a spoiler, but not really, with the person that comes and meets them at the train station, I think they knew who was coming back.
I see. I only read the first chapter, and I didn't read the rest. So maybe it's after the first chapter.
Yeah, it's something.
Hmm
I think it's like the beginning of chapter 2. But it's yeah, I think they knew.
Okay, okay.
um I do want to mention that whenever he's when Lothar's drinking Jack's, Asher, and Cobra's blood, he mentions that they are not enough to be of the elite, which I feel is like foreshadowing for like a further on thing.
So they'll eventually evolve. Give it enough time. I mean, they're immortal. They have plenty of time to become an elite.
Um, but I do believe that it is mentioned somewhere in this area that the elite that he's talking about is like a special academy that they send people to train and harness their power to become even more powerful. But you already have to be deemed crazy powerful to be sent to be even better.
Hint, hint for book 4.
Yep.
And then one last note before we segue to the next, or the last 2 chapters actually, there's only
Yeah.
37 chapters in this book, is that the voice in Sadie's head when she reflects and figures out everything declares itself as the Song of the Hunt, right? Throwback to Demeter's Song of the Hunt that channeled his inner fury. And I was just confused on why this voice did not let Sadie know that it was the Song of the Hunt. The chapter it's referenced the first time, and it's even referenced again a second time, but isn't brought up until the end. Like we were just saving it for the finale, I guess.
Because who would? Why would Sadie think that she has anything unless somebody directly says to her, "You taste like this"?
That's true. We just needed it for the plot to move along. That
Yeah.
was just her awakening moment. And then we're finally at the last 2 chapters. I've been hoarding, so you get the last 2 chapters.
Oh, good, great, love this. So, lots of things happen here. Basically, the quick summary of this is Sadie is OP. Main character things happen. The evil Fae Queen gets defeated, and our heroes make their grand escape. And the Beast Mafia would like to have a word with them.
They're very
So,
important.
some key things. The Sadie, I believe Sadie has this realization.
She does.
There is a realization that happens in Sadie's mind that there's Fey Palace carvings, blood Fey statues, poems, and the sacred lake from book 1 all connect to blood. She starts to realize that Dimitri's apology and the Song of the Hunt hint that she has a Fey connection. And then her memories start flashing back of Dick beating her as a child. And during this, Lothar leans in to bite Sadie, but she's decided for some reason for her magical powers to now work.
Let's go plot armor.
Um, she somehow triggers an immense surge of power, and she
Yeah.
uses her blood to attack the queen.
Yeah, she starts reciting that Fae poem, the second one, the blood in the throne. I'm not going to repeat it again because that requires me to look it up.
Yeah,
But
she repeats the thing back, and for some reason she just starts. She fucking what? She slings blood that way.
yeah, I don't know where she got the blood from, but I think she literally pulled it out of her pores, which I don't think that's possible, but she pulled it out of her pores and launched it at the queen.
Um, but before Sadie can successfully kill the queen threatens Sadie with prisoners. They had captured Lucinda and Jax's sisters, Lucinda being Sadie's sister, that I think we've mentioned her name one time before in
Sorry,
the
Lucinda
book 1.
fans.
Just basically all you need to know about Lucinda is she looks exactly like Sadie, but younger and scar free. But they have Lucinda and Jax's sisters and Dick, and that causes her to falter for a second. But then again, she remembers, hey, I'm supposed to be a badass, and continues to look for an opening to attack the queen. She orders them to release them. She lands the blood on the queen, and then orders the queen to release the chains that bind them, and it breaks Cobra and Arabella's collars.
And
Which,
then after that, the
strange.
girls like break out of the guards' grasp, and then they attack the guards so that the Fae Queen's not protected.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense, but sure. So Sadie then uses her blood powers to take the queen down within like an inch of her life. And then Arabella pulls a boss ass bitch move and shoves her hand that she has shifted into like ice daggers into her mother's chest and rips out her mother's still beating heart and takes a big old bite of it while her mother's life force is still there because Sadie's blood is inside the queen still.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sadie withdraws her blood.
And then I just want to note this was not brought up in the chapter where I talked about how the rulers get uh, overturned by dying. But not only do they die, but the person who kills them has to eat their heart whole and raw so that they can be the next ruler. And that's exactly what Arabella does. She just
Big ol'
nibbles
chomp.
on the quote unquote forbidden snack as Sadie calls it. This is not my words. This is Sadie's
Yeah.
words.
How was your forbidden snack? I think I'm scared of blood now. But yeah, so Arabella then declares the end of the Fae Games. She calls for medics to attend to all of the wounded, and then Sadie passes the fuck out.
She did a
Again.
lot of work. That was a lot of plot work in the span of like 5 paragraphs. I think this took place.
Yeah. Felt very rushed. Sadie wakes up to Cobra carrying her, and she, for some unholy reason, the words that she mutters is, "Mommy." Let me grab it.
Mommy?
Mommy, I ask as I snuggled deeper into the warmth. Not your mother, kitten. A sinful masculine voice said with a chuckle.
At least he entertained it. I'm not your damn mommy.
Yeah, so she wakes up. They climb into the portal to escape the Fey realm, and they head into the Beast realm.
Yep, and everybody's here, guy. Like the gang's all here. We got the Alphas, we got Xerxes, we have Arabella, who's electing to not take over the Pharaoh after like eating her mom's heart. Which, frankly, if she wanted to not take over, I think she should have just like squished it, and then there'd
Yeah.
be no ruler. Then they'd be chaos, and
Dude.
they love chaos.
Yeah, they do. Um, the portal that they go through is a flower. Um, Really weird detail, but I feel like somehow that's supposed to link to Jax, but we'll never actually know.
No, you know what's
Um,
actually crazy is I read this before we started this podcast. I reread this section, and it's not like the flower opens and they go through something. The flower's just there, and then Arabella's like, "All right, guess I'm going in," and she just walks into it and disappears in black ripples. Which I'm like, if you're gonna do that, just make it a lake or something. Like, if you're gonna do a flower, make it have to
I
go into the middle of the flower or something.
I wonder if maybe this portal isn't using Fey glamour magic to hide it, and it's actually one of the big black portals that we see in the other depictions of it, but it's just glamored to look like a flower so that it's not seen by most people.
It's enchanted,
Yeah,
whatever that means.
I
And then
assume that it's glamored
also,
magic.
Jax's sisters and Lucinda are there. They did not get left behind, guys. Dick, however, did get left behind. But the sisters, they're all here.
Which is so strange. I forgot that they they didn't take Dick and he just disappeared.
Yeah, considering Sadie wanted, well, I guess Sadie's the only one who knew that she wanted to take Dick alive. And Arabella, but Arabella didn't give a crap. She was focused on leaving the realm.
Um,
Um, so no shame to the boys for not knowing what they don't know.
Arabella is now back to being Aaron. They encounter a subway train, board it, and head into customs, which is wild. I feel like these customs would have revealed a lot of shit, but plot armor.
Oh well.
Um, Cobra identifies himself as an alpha snake, and that triggers an alarm, causing guards to come. And the guards recognize Cobra as the lost heir to Serpentis City, who was kidnapped 100 years ago.
He is the son of the Dawn.
Yeah, he
Dawn.
is Dadan's son.
Hmm. So big spoiler, big cliffhanger for the next book. We gotta read to find out what happens in Beast Realm.
I will give you a tiny little teaser of I get really really mad about the fact that Jasmin Mass decides to change the name of the city from this last chapter to the first time it's mentioned in the next book. So
Yeah, it was a very
currently,
odd choice.
yeah, currently it is Serpentance City. Uh, and in the next book it will be referred to as Serpentine City. Um, don't like that. Hate it. Serpentis sounds cooler. I don't know why you took the one cool thing that you had here and changed it, but go off. Um, Basically, at the end of this, this is how we feel.
Let's see, where were we? Oh yes, in the pit of despair. That's how I felt for the whole book.
Yeah.
And then knowing that I had to read the third book.
Um,
It's like, damn it, she sucked me in again. Oh, I forgot about this one.
to us seeing the Asher
The fact that I
scene
have
in
to
the
read another
bath,
book. Oh, that too.
and then immediately after when we see chapter 31.
So
They-
sucked. It was like the high of highs and then immediately followed by the low of lows.
So, in conclusion, Jasmine Mass, fucking stop, please.
I mean, it's the train wreck that keeps on giving, which entertains me enough, but like for a for a book, it's a little lackluster.
I
And then
also,
punches me in the gut in the middle.
I forgot to mention this, but in the forbidden scene, she yells out, "Please don't suck my elbow. I don't want it." I forgot
Oh
that
my
I had
god.
that bookmark to talk about.
Oh my god. Wait, which forbidden scene? Where she eats the
No, no, no,
heart
no, no,
or
no, no.
the sex
In the
clinic?
sex clinic, Sadie yells out, "Please don't lick my elbow. Oh, please don't suck my elbow. I don't want it."
Oh, that's because they saw in the pamphlet when
Yeah,
they
the
filled out
elbow.
those forms, elbow kink, and they're like, who the hell has an elbow kink? And
Uh,
then what was it? Oh yeah, I'm like reading the notes that we did, and the three sisters from Jax that are here are Jinx, Jess, and Jala, and I'm pretty sure Jala has a twin sister
okay,
Jana, and I don't know
so
why she's not here.
so I editor's note for earlier in the thing where you were like, "Hey, what are the other two names that we're forgetting?" Jan and Jin are the twins. They're at school.
Oh.
They're the two
Oh.
that were in school age.
So I guess wait, so they're not the youngest though, right?
No,
They're like
Jinx
second
is the
youngest?
youngest. Yes.
So why are they in school and the others are here? I don't
Um,
understand why you take out 75% of the sisters.
So I think what happened was the twins stayed at school for like they're on break, and I think this is mentioned lightly. The twins stayed at school during break because they were going to hang out with friends or something, and Jinx went back home to visit the other sisters, and the other two are old enough that they are aged out of the school program because Jess is 20 and the other one is 18, and the school program happens from 12 to 18.
Well, you know what I think happened? I think Jasmine didn't want to write 5 different additional women. So
Yeah,
she said, I have to leave 2 behind, and why not just leave the
the cool twins.
non-consequential twins? Like,
The
she had to pull Jinx because Jinx is too smart for her own good, and Jess, I guess, because she's the closest in age. I don't know why Jala stayed. I don't
I
think there was anything notable about her during the entire introduction with her.
no. I think
So she's
maybe
just
in
there
book
for filler.
3 she has a couple of moments, but nothing nothing crazy.
An
But,
odd selection. And
you know,
then the only other thing from this chapter is in chapter 1, the queen's like, I got all these enchantments, so you can't hurt me. And and then immediately after all of that, she gets one shot by Sadie with their new blood powers. And in my head, I'm just like, well, if you tout around in the kingdom that you wiped out an entire race of blood fae, like, wouldn't you be smart enough to have things in place so they couldn't come back? Or, any abilities that would negate their abilities or something.
right.
And she had none of it.
Also,
I don't care that they've been gone for 5 centuries.
I
You need to be smarter than that.
I feel like the crazy part is like when you know that you are a queen or a ruler, typically you don't stand out in open air when you're surrounded in a realm full of people who can cast magic and knowing that you can only be succeeded by being killed.
So true. I
So,
just think it's so silly that she's the big bad of this book,
she's not
but
even
then
done
she
anything good to
no,
be
I think
evil.
she's literally in this book, physically in this book for 3 chapters. And that is the chapter she's introduced, the first game where she's there with Arabella just being snarky. I guess technically the second game, so she gets 4 chapters, and then the third game, and then that's it. Then she dies. Very anticlimactic.
It is. Um, but I think that wraps book 2.
It
I
does
think that
indeed wrap up book 2.
that closes the cover, yeets it across the fucking room,
Lights
uh,
it on fire. Makes
sets,
s'mores.
lobotomizes that part of my brain.
That too.
Join us next time.
Yes. Thank you guys for
uh,
tuning in. Hopefully this one was more cohesive than the last one, or at the very least, it was just as, if not funnier than the last book.
Um, as a
Thank you guys
reminder,
for watching.
like, comment, subscribe, so that we can put out more content. We are available on all the social media platforms. They're linked down below in the description. And join us next time for the Beast Realm, I guess. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.